Hello, good sir.
Hey man, what's up?
Hey, how you doing, bro?
I'm good.
You
Just
got,
been
you just been.
chilling.
I was gonna say you got a second to talk.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just about to. I'm in the car now, about to go DoorDash for a bit, but probably isn't that busy, so I can talk.
Oh hell yeah, yeah. You been doing DoorDash?
Yeah, I'm working at FedEx still, but and I was doing a little bit of DoorDash before that. That's kind of what I turned to after I lost my job back at the beginning of COVID.
Yeah.
But then my car's also kind of a piece of shit, and it was going through stuff then. So I've been doing it less, but I didn't want to work full time at FedEx because I actually like DoorDashing, and I like FedEx too, but enough. But if I did that full time, I just feel like it would take a toll on my body.
Oh yeah, dude. I worked at the warehouse, the Kroger warehouse, for like 3 weeks, and I was like, I think I think like happiness is definitely not worth money for sure. It just doesn't equal out like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, it's just shitty. I know how that feels.
Worked at the one here in Lebanon.
Yeah, it was Kroger and like Blue Ash. It was the Kroger warehouse in Blue Ash
Oh,
area.
okay, okay.
Yeah, so it was like in a freezer, and you're working in like 0 and negative 15-degree weather. It was pretty
Oh,
sick. But you got to drive these little machines around that made you feel like you were in Star Wars, like flying around on those little things.
yeah, dude, we got something similar, like little tuggers, like trains that carry boxes and shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, those things are fun.
Ours was like a little lift, like it had a button, and there was like a speed button too, so you'd be like speeding through the whole thing. I don't know. It was a good time. Well, it was actually a shitty time, but remembering it fondly is more fun, you know?
Right.
But I actually finished up your episode with Sule. I re-listened to it. Finally got around to re-listening to it, and I guess I didn't finish it the first time because at the end, you guys were talking about like you wish you had a machine that could just pump out art, and
Do you really?
yeah,
I
do you,
remember saying that.
yeah, he was just like, well, like a factory, like and like get a bunch of Chinese labor workers. I mean, that was your words, not mine. Uh,
Yeah, now I remember that. Yeah, as soon as you said Chinese workers,
yeah, that was the key word. Yeah, no, but think about it, bro. Like that, everything you guys were talking about, even like collaboration and whatnot, is like Sound Machine. Did you listen to the new Gorillaz Sound Machine?
no, I didn't yet. I really want to. I think I've heard a couple of the singles. Were they all singles? Is that how it worked, or?
There was quite a bit. Yeah, there were a few singles. I will admit. I think there was like 5 or 6, but all of them were
Okay, but
fire.
kind of combined to make like a playlist.
Well, no, and then they actually released an album with all like.
Oh, okay, so it is an album. Okay.
Yeah, it's but it's crazy. It's Sound Machine Season 1. Like Gorillaz presents Sound Machine Season 1. And
Okay.
and dude, it's just crazy because like all of those, I don't know which singles you listened to, but like the first one was Désolé, which features I don't know how to say her name. It's like Fatoi, Crois moi, I don't know, something like that.
Okay.
But she's like I think like an African singer who sings like African melodies and whatnot, and he just has like the Gorillaz guitar, like the light kind of happier guitar, and then she just dude, and that's just the first one, and then you got Slow Tie from the UK. He brings on a song Six Black or whatever his name is, Black,
Yeah.
and Elton John on one track, and so like I mean.
What?
Yeah, it's a really crazy album. First of all, and that's what I'm saying. Like just the concept of Sound Machine. You know what I mean? Like it's just a
Yeah.
machine pumping out music, just going. And yeah, no, it's all fire. And but so and also think about this. Like it's bringing people all over from the world. It's like doing different types of like. Music that originate in different cultures, but then also that song with Six Lack and Elton is like bringing together generations. You know what I mean? Like he has a bunch of older artists and like new artists and stuff on there.
He's a little double whammy there. That's pretty sick.
Yeah.
So, what way was it similar to? I'm trying to refresh my memory of what exactly we said as far as like how that kind of relates. What were we talking about that
Well,
the collaboration that kind of modeled that?
yeah, it was like you guys were talking about like how creativity has become with the internet almost like people who are genuinely trying to express what they want to express through art are part of like a team, like part of like a collaboration. So that's adding into this thing that is the internet and like art on the internet and just art
Okay. And
nowadays.
that's the sound machine. Is they got everybody together, and the sound machine took over, and they kept adding to the piece of the puzzle.
Exactly, dude. And it's just like random stuff. I mean, it's just all sorts of different, like there's like an 80s sounding song, there's like, you know, a couple classic Gorillaz sounding songs, but there's like also a bunch of new stuff and like older stuff. And
That's sweet, dude. Yeah, I remember you recommending it. I'll listen to it today while I'm dashing for sure.
yeah, definitely. I mean, JPEG Mafia is on there.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, Unknown Mortal Orchestra. I don't know. Yeah, just like all
I don't
these.
know if I've heard of them.
Yeah. But anyways, I don't know. It's a crazy good album, but also good episode, dude. I haven't. What I've noticed recently is like I've been living in Athens for a while, and like last year when I was in Athens, I kind of reverted to. I was kind of like isolated mentally. I feel like from the college lifestyle. I don't know why.
Uh-huh.
I just don't think it's for me as much like going out to bars and stuff like that.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, that was kind of how my year was even before.
yeah, yeah. But it's like so I was trying to I reverted to like this state. It was like this first. The thing is like it's happening again, but I've recognized the pattern where it's like I reverted into this like depressive state where I'm just kind of down. But then while I'm down, it's like, well, what do I have while I'm down here? And I go and look into creativity and art, like you know what I mean, and just like coming back to that like realization of like, oh yeah, this has always got me, no matter what, you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It gives you a leg to stand on.
Right. Yeah, and so like I've been kind of in Athens. It's like there's not that many people that like talk about it and kind of think about things like that much either. Plus, we've had the distraction of COVID and the election and everything to kind of
Right.
it just hasn't like I haven't been thinking about that stuff in forever. And I don't know, like listening to that your podcast today really like meant something to me. You know what I mean? Like it was like, oh yeah, there are other people that think like this, and like there is a team. It is like an understanding. Like he said, I trust you a little bit more if I see that you're like expressing art in some way.
You said that the listening to it gave you that?
Yeah, a little
You
bit.
built
But
that trust?
well, no, he said that in the podcast. Sule said that like if yeah, you just meet somebody, even from like a different culture or something, that you see that they've created like this art form or they're like inputting into art somehow. Like you kind of trust them a little bit more. I don't know.
Yeah. It kind of bridges that language barrier.
Right.
Well, that's awesome, dude. I appreciate it. I'm glad it could. That's what it's all about. I'm glad it could. Make you feel that way. I was really honestly kind of worried about that episode. As cool as it was to sit down with him, and as good of an idea he had, like of ideas he has, but he hadn't done any like interviews or like discussions that he put online before, and that was only the second episode for me. So there was there was a lot of discomfort going on, but I thought it was a really interesting idea. And
No.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. I went back and listened to it. Definitely, I enjoyed it more than I thought I would. That like the actual like through and through in the content of it. There was definitely a lot of like stumbling and like I think just nervous energy of like how we verbalize things. But I think we still got like all the ideas out. Like the awkwardness of some of it can be difficult to get through. But if you're a diehard, especially if you're just kind of a casual listener, but if you're like really into podcasts and you're open to like new voices and as they're developing and things like that, then I don't think it's that big of a deal. But
Yeah,
yeah, I want
definitely.
to have him on again at some point. That'd be fun. He's cool to talk to.
Well, and I think a lot of people our age kind of still like you got to grow out of those like mumbles and stumbles, like the ums, buts,
exactly.
ands, likes, all that stuff. It just kind of and the dude, the get me so bad because like it's like I need to know if you know or not. It's like heard, like what, you know what I'm saying?
One sec, my dogs are yapping at me back.
Damn.
Shh, calm down.
But
Sorry about that.
I think you like doing DoorDash and stuff, and like actually I know so many people going and doing that stuff and making like decent money doing it, like
Yeah,
that.
dude.
it could be like the future of some job employment areas, just because a lot of people are going to want stuff delivered now, and
Uh-huh.
and people like driving around in their own car, dropping shit off and getting paid for it.
Yeah, that's what I've been saying. I like it definitely. I mean, it's not, you're not making bank at least consistently. It's kind of like waiting tables where it just kind of depends on service.
Yeah, that's fair.
But things have definitely been booming for it even more recently, just because of COVID and everything. Everybody's definitely getting shit delivered more. But I mean,
Yeah.
some days I'll make like 25 an hour. That's usually like peak. Sometimes I'll make like 30 even, but
Really?
usually you take gas out of that and wear and tear of your car is probably somewhere around like 23, 24 or something. I don't know, maybe a little less than that.
Yeah.
But it's definitely my favorite job I've ever had, and I consider myself like a really social person. But I
Yeah.
think one thing I'm bad about is like knowing when to stop. Because I think sometimes I kind of prioritize hanging out and talking to people or something, and not. I mean, everybody needs their alone time. No matter how social you are, you gotta take care of yourself.
Oh yeah. Have you?
So I think.
Are you saying that you've been like not having a lot of alone time recently?
Yeah, well, I mean, more so this year for sure, but I think just door dashing, it's like, because I've been doing that. I've been actually door dashing for going on a couple years now, at least here and there. And then it just kind of varies as much as far as like how much I do it. But yeah, it definitely like it forces you to be isolated, and I feel like one of the few times where I am like around people when I don't want to be is at work. I just want to be able to do my work and not worry about making friends,
Yeah.
socializing and shit like that, and forced small talk and whatnot.
Yeah.
So I think it's definitely helped me with that too. And I mean, you get to listen to podcasts and music, so it's like right up my alley as far as what I like to do. So
Yeah. No, I mean,
enjoyed it.
I feel that working as like a server and bartender for so long, bro. Like, there'd be days where I'd come in and it'd be like, I actually served like my general manager, and it was like kind of a big deal, but so I was like trying to be cool. But then afterwards I was like, oh yeah, so how did I do like serving y'all? And they were like, well, you seemed really sad. And I was just like,
You seem really sad.
yeah, they were like, yeah, you seemed really sad about yourself. I was like, bro, I was just having a bad day. Sorry about it.
Right.
Yeah.
It wasn't until you said some shit. Now I'm sad.
No, yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, fuck you. Like, I'm allowed to be sad.
Right, dude.
I'm trying to get the pity tips. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You got to do that sometimes. Just act like you're really overworked, even when you're not, just so get somebody to slide you a 20.
Yeah, definitely.
What have you been doing with since you kind of recognize that? Because I always find that like whenever I get in a funk, I don't really realize I was in a funk until like a month after, where I've like naturally just kind of forced myself to start finding things that are going to make me feel better.
Yeah.
And then I look back and I'm like, oh no, I definitely wasn't a funk. Because I mean, even just throughout like just life in general, like even if I'm having like several good days in a row, sometimes I'll start to wonder, what if I'm like tricking myself and I actually have been in a funk when I haven't. But then something actually bad will happen and I'll realize, okay, now I'm definitely like, I'm actually pumped. Things were good enough before, but this is like true discomfort.
Yeah, and then you just sort of you completely forget any memory of that happiness. Like, it's like a distant memory at that point. You're just like, oh well, is it worth it now anymore? Like, I don't know. Like, when you're in it, you're just like, oh yeah, I totally could just, I get why life is worth it. The ups and the downs, bring them on, everything. And then
Exactly.
and then you get in the down, you're like, fuck this.
It changed my mind.
Yeah. I actually talked about, well, it's funny, on the last episode I uploaded, one of Articulate, it was my buddy and I, and we're on very similar wavelengths, like, in our lives, like, mentally, like, we both had depressions, and we both had, like, well, and, woo, woo, but we both had them around the same time, and, so, like, this last episode, we were both, like, riding this wave of just, like, bro, I feel so happy right now. And we were just, like, talking about, like, how good everything was, and, like, how tight you are. And it's funny because he was actually on an earlier episode when, like, COVID hit that ended in, like, a really depressing, like, era. You know what I mean? Like, it was just, like, I don't even know where I was going with that, to be honest with you. It's just like I caught that on camera, that moment of like, oh yeah, I'm really fucking happy. And then the next day I was like editing it and I'm like, damn, bro, I'm not even close to how I was in there.
Yeah, dude, the switch can flip real quick.
Oh my god, so quick, dude. And it's so fucked up because it's like, bro, just let me enjoy like hanging out in it for a minute, you know. I
Yeah.
don't want to dip my toe in. I want to jump in the pool.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you think a lot of that was just like caused not even by having a conversation in and of itself, but the fact that you guys like bonded over that, like were able to put it into words and like kind of recognize that that's what you were feeling?
Yeah, yeah, that definitely had something to do with it for sure. But yeah, no, I like you were saying, like recognizing you're in a funk is like while you're in it, it's very difficult. But I think it becomes progressively easier because when like I said, last year I was like in a big funk, and that's when I really went into creativity. So like a big factor for me when I was like, it's basically when I get so tired of my own thoughts, and I want to say bored in a way, but you're not bored. You're just like tortured by the thoughts, you know.
You're like, actually, Logan actually said something, or I don't know where he got it from. It might have been from like, I think it was from a Sam Harris book that we both read, but he said that boredom is not the like inability to, or the lack of desire to do anything. It's the inability to decide what you actually want to do, because when you're bored, your mind is actually, it's not like blank, like, but it's like your mind is actually racing.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're just thinking about all the possibilities, and none of them sound desirable. So you just get yourself more and more anxious about
Thinking
all
about
these
it.
different things because you're not doing anything. You're just thinking, and it's like it feels so constant and out of control that that just becomes like a cyclical thing.
Damn, that's actually like that's like on point. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
dude. That was definitely like a profound thing. One of the profound things I got out of that book. That like anytime, and I've always kind of had this saying to myself: only boring people get bored. But which I think is kind of true. But that definitely, I used to think of that in the way that like boring equals lack of effort or something like that. But that definitely kind of put a new perspective and spin on it for me to think
yeah,
of
it's
it
like labeling boring with good or bad, and sometimes boring is good. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sometimes like what we actually mean is boring is like a clean slate and nothing to do is like really healthy.
Right.
Yeah, good to do because, and I try not to get in myself in like as many funks with like creative stuff because I feel like that and you're just being so harsh on yourself that you're not doing anything constructive. You're just kind of like complaining and feeling dread about not being good enough.
Mm-hmm.
But so I try to make my funks exclusively out of like poor decisions and stuff like that. Because those I can correct. And like if I'm not taking care of responsibilities, like my bank account's getting low, or I'm not taking care of something I need to take care of, then that's easier to pull myself out of. It's not like as existential as the funk I get in if I start questioning whether I want to make anything like filmmaking anymore, or like having that existential questions of like, yeah, if I think I'm going to make it in filmmaking or be able to take care of myself or achieve my dreams and long-term things like that. Just feel like that doesn't really do anything for me, so I just try to.
Yeah, you're not.
If I start thinking like that, I try to take a break, to take myself away from it, because I know if I stop doing anything creative for like a week or two, it's all gonna come flooding back.
Oh
it's
yeah.
It's gonna pour out of me, and that'll probably be something that I really like. I at least appreciate more than the last thing I did.
Yeah, definitely. And like, you know, it's just taking all that into account. Like, I feel like a lot of the negative thoughts that you're talking about when you do judge yourself on those, like it doesn't, you know, it's called creativity for a reason. Like, you're creating something, you know what I mean? So like when you're sitting there thinking about all the things you should do or you have created, and like you're judging them and you're like kind of having anxiety about, all right, well, what should I add in this direction? You're literally like not putting anything into the world. You know what I mean? Like, nothing's gonna, like, every action has a reaction, and you're not creating any action, so there's not gonna be any reaction whatsoever.
It's all reaction.
Yeah.
It's like made up ideas. Yeah, for sure, dude. That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah, and I mean, I totally, like I said, going back to that definition of boredom we were talking about, it really is not deciding what to do, because I mean, I've had a couple off days recently where I kind of just, you do the morning routine and then you kind of just sit there. And, I was just sitting there like listening to music and just like out on, it's funny, out on my table, I've been doing this thing where I printed out like a Louis C.K. transcript and like a few Dave Chappelle transcripts where I go through and I like highlight the punchlines and like underline the setups and everything kind of and so I had that out on the table. And then I've also been like applying to jobs and I still have homework and stuff. So my laptop was out on the other side of the table with another chair. And then like I also have like the part of the couch where like my food and drink are and like it's set up to like look at the TV. And there's like a workout bar. It's literally like so I was high and I like saw it from like an outside perspective. Like it's literally like a video game. It's like, all right, choose to go here to further your career in comedy. Choose to go here to like, like complete this task faster. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know. I just saw like each potential option I could put time into and then just deciding I don't want to choose one because it seems so like meta to me in the moment.
So that was what were the other decision or the other choices and like options? You said you're making like a stem of like different.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like it's like boredom is like having these ideas. Like I think a lot of people have goals that they want to complete in general. It's like, oh, well, I want to get a college degree, and then it becomes like your master's, and then it becomes like different certificates and stuff like that. Or like, oh, I want to be good at stock trading, or like, oh, I want to read more books, even like on a smaller scale like that.
Yeah, definitely.
And so like it's literally like, I don't know if you've played like Assassin's Creed, but like a lot of games where it's like you level up like certain amount of money, like it's different skills, you know what I mean? There's like the stealth skills and then there's like the warrior skills that you can develop and get different moves for and stuff like that, so it's like I feel like you are a character in a game. And like whoever's playing us is making the option to like, all right, well, I want to work on the comedy thing right now. It's like, well, this isn't going to affect us as much in the long term. So, short term, I need to work on my resume, like that skill. I need to work on, upgrade that thing. I don't know, just stuff like that. Oh, it's just a high thought,
Right. Hey, sometimes those are the best. Yeah, that's really interesting, dude. I think that, I find myself doing that. I never used to do that, honestly. Like, it was always very clear to me that like I was able to like rationalize everything else to be in pursuit of filmmaking, so nothing felt useless because I like was very accepting of it being such a long journey and path. So I never used to have that like player mode feeling of weighing so many different options and feeling like I could do this and that could be the rest of my life, or I could do this and that could be a part of my life. And
yeah,
things like that. But the more I started getting into like podcasting and music too, that started to stress me out a lot because it started to become more apparent to me that even if I become a filmmaker, like that's not all of who I am, and that won't make me, I can't sustain that. Like that won't make me happy if I'm only a filmmaker.
Right.
And I think that's true of anybody. Like you ask anyone who is just one thing as an artist, they're like, well, I'm also a brother or a husband or a friend, or I work for this nonprofit, or I started this organization and this charity and shit like that. So I just started to realize how much broader like that life could be, and I'm always like trying to perceive what kind of person I am, because it's really hard when you're that kind. I think when you're an ambitious person, because you start to feel responsibility for things you shouldn't. You start thinking like, well, if this person can do it, and like I've told myself as a dreamer that if they can do it, I can do it, and I shouldn't be able to make excuses for myself. Then you start to think like you can do anything, and then you start looking at everybody that way. You feel like I almost feel like I get too much inspiration out of stuff too much. Sometimes like I relate to it too hard. And then it starts making me have.
You said it. All those thoughts kind of make you starting to have like what, like panic attacks or something.
Yes, I don't know if they ever get that like out of hand. Yeah. I feel like my panic attacks have usually been caused by more traumatic things,
Right.
and I don't
Yeah.
think I have
No.
like chronic panic attacks. I mean, I used to have them pretty often, like high school, mostly in like freshman, sophomore year, and then like creative outlets started to be like a really good therapeutic thing for me. But definitely semblances of that. It's kind of like a similar feeling. It just hasn't got out of hand yet. It's just like, I guess like anxiety, but not full-on panic attacks.
Right.
But,
Right.
yeah, it's just like this, the doubts and like the uncertainty. I stop embracing it and start like second guessing all of it. I'm like, well, I have too many interests. I can't be like, I'm never going to be able to be proficient enough at any of them.
In any of them, yeah, no.
Just spending more time learning shit. I think it's a combination of those, the second guesses, and like feeling drained, feeling like I don't have enough energy left over to do like the more mundane things, like the learning and or the folding clothes, like the things that you want to get over with, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I have those thoughts more now as I get older, but I'm trying. I definitely think like creative outlets and like a passion for just making stuff is helping me not stress about them as much.
Right.
Because like you were saying, what you were doing before, like taking notes and transcribing like different stand-up comedians that you're inspired by, like that's like a huge thing that any successful comedian will tell you that you should do, but most people don't want to do. And it's like you're getting excited about it and willing to do it. And then 5 minutes later, that creative mind that made you inspired to do that starts to take the reins and drift off and start making you think, okay, what else could I do with my entire life?
Right.
Rather than it's that overreaction to the actions you haven't even done yet.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I feel like that's like a direct correlation because of the internet, like there's just so many different things that you could like
overload.
Oh yeah, that you could just pursue, and then you get so lost in thought about the things that you could pursue, you don't end up pursuing any of them. And yeah, no, I just feel like, yeah, it's like you're saying, is like just because you value filmmaking and like like your art form as like that much, is like what other things can you start putting time into now that you might be missing out on? Like. I don't know. I feel like, again, that's part of the correlation from the internet, is like we're just putting so much weight on every little thing now. And it's not just weight, but it's judgment, because, everybody judges everything on there too. So it's like, yeah, if I wanted to take the time to do the comedy thing, then like there's going to be people judging me as like, yeah, but comedy is just like a side thing, or like you shouldn't worry about, or, it's not like I actually think that, but those like echo in your mind sometimes, it's like, at least maybe for me, that's again more of the anxiety thing. But I feel like
of which thought again?
Of like, if you're putting time into, well, even filmmaking, it's like some people are gonna be like, yeah, but you can't make a career out of filmmaking,
Right.
It's just kind of like looked down on for some reason. Just creative, like you doing a creative thing as like your main life,
Right. Yeah, it's definitely, which is kind of crazy, and that people see it that way, because it's what does everybody do when they go home? They watch Netflix, like especially in America. If there's anywhere where it's likely that you're going to actually be able to make a career out of applying yourself to it in a creative, it's fucking America. That's what we are to the world. Like people are for our culture more than anything.
Yeah.
That's why we're so rich. But yeah, I think just the sheer numbers of people here too. Yeah, it's like it's a lot. It's hard not to let that doubt creep in my mind sometimes about whether it's true. And it's like, well, who am I to think that I actually could do that? Like, there's people working way harder than me. But those are all just. It's like it's just the same as like. There's that saying that it takes more muscles in your face to frown than it does to smile, or something like that. So you got to use the energy either way. So how many times do I have to have the doubtful thought to where, I mean, it's never going to completely go away, but hopefully you find ways to make it consume less time. And it's definitely something that's been on my mind even more. That's it, which is interesting, because I didn't really think about how that. I wouldn't have thought, if you hadn't called me up, I wouldn't have thought about how that relates to the conversation that Sule and I are having. Not putting so much, not letting this like mass media situation overwhelm you so much that the only reason you do something is for people to like it or to think it's high quality. Cause
right.
It's kind of a weird defense. I'm not really a lowbrow person, but I actually just made an experimental video for one of the covers I did, and it was one of the first things. I had a lot of fun with it, and I just let myself make it in like a few hours. I didn't even think about anything. It was all just pure instinct. I didn't really think about like a structure, a story. I was just like, let's just see what my hands do when I try to get this shot or I try to cut this together. Let me just go purely on feeling, because I have this song. The song's telling the story enough that really I just need the style to fit, especially in experimental stuff. It's kind of a although it's not my preferred form, it was a liberating thing to do, because I didn't like. It makes me think of like what Sule does, where he's done very small projects just kind of on his own, and they're very, very out there oftentimes, kind of abstract and not necessarily extremely like proficient by any means of
technique and style,
professional standard.
Right.
There's a certain expressiveness to it that's so uniquely him. Even if it doesn't all make sense to me, I can like. There's enough going on there that I can interpret something out of it, or just appreciate the fact that he's doing something. So
yeah, I feel like that's the rawness of it. You know, that's like fully embracing the present and letting that creativity flow, as opposed to preconceiving an idea and like having all that structure and like putting too much, like putting effort that could be considered negative. You know, like. That could be considered work or a job or, you know, just kind of something that you have to do. Instead of doing that, it's sitting down and it's just like, well, this is just going to come out, you know? Like, I'm just going to try it and just going to shit it out and see what it feels. Yeah, and that's what I like, you know, about the podcasting, is because there's times you can come in with things to talk about and, you know, words to say and a structure and questions and everything, or you can just come at it like, let's just sit down and see what happens, you know?
Right. Right, dude.
And
yeah, that's the best part about it.
Yeah, and so I was actually experimenting today with podcasting, and we're recording right now, Joey. You're live. This is Candid.
Are you fucking serious?
I am, bro.
Well, did you just fucking punk me?
Shit.
I'm scanning my brain for all the things I said. Like, did I start talking about vague drug experiences anywhere?
No, actually, no.
I didn't tell my deep dark secrets, did I?
I don't believe so. You were just being a genuine human being, sir. But yeah, we've been recording this whole time.
Ripped my fucking dad pen.
Yeah. I got high beforehand too. Honestly, I didn't.
Did you now?
Huh?
The podcast should start here. Now we're on even playing field.
Yeah. Now we actually start 40 minutes in.
How dare you take advantage of my sobriety? You caught me off guard.
Yeah, I just you know, I really wanted to see the real Joey, the sober Job.
This side of me was never meant to be exposed to the world.
Yeah. Well, and so that's
sick, dude. I'm glad you did that. That's a great idea. Calling people. Is this the first time you did that? Called somebody up and just did a podcast?
Yeah.
Nice. So I'm glad to have been your guinea pig. I hope it went as well as you could have hoped.
Yeah. I think it did. I think we had a good conversation. You know. Well, you and I. That's the reason. Like, I did it with you especially because we always have good conversation in general, I feel.
I appreciate that, man. Yeah, I think so too.
Well, and that kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier. Is like I haven't had a lot of like artistic-minded people around here, but I feel like when you live around artistic-minded people and like know more creative people in general, you just have more interesting conversations. And I don't know, I miss it, you know. And not to talk shit about people who aren't more inclined. It's like we were talking about, you know, they're choosing to pursue what they want to pursue. You know, and different values have different meanings. But personally, I want, you know, having a common interest is more interesting to me. So.
Yeah, everybody's got it's so interesting to me that some people can talk about. You've done some really cool episodes of like more, what's the word, like industrial type jobs and stuff, like environments, and I haven't listened to all the episodes, but I see all the titles, and you seem to do like a bunch of different stuff, kind of like Rogan does, where it's like he can be talking to some journalist one day, and then talking to a comedian, and then a MMA fighter,
Yeah.
whoever, you know, like you kind of. I think that's really cool that you have like
Well,
such a wide variety of curiosity. But it's weird to think that like the people that you're having open up about, like, I saw you did like a computer science one recently, and my brother's in computer science, and that still baffles me. Like, I can never imagine myself doing that or talking to people all the time about computers and stuff. But
oh yeah, no, I sound so dumb in that episode. I sound so dumb. Because like I can't understand. I'm just like
idiot to talk about computer science, man.
yeah, but yeah, no, and you know, I'll take that bullet. You know, I'll act like the dumbass. So some people, and that's what I'm saying, and that's what the novelty to Joe Rogan is like he doesn't mind being the jackass. So it's like, you know, so I'm like, oh, so this is this, right? And he's like, maybe I didn't explain that like correctly. I don't think you're really getting it, you know. And it's like, damn, like I just feel like you know, I don't know. It's not really that important, but
no, it makes sense. Like, I think it helps having two people or having someone like that. I think that gives more potential to an interviewer, because that's like its own interest and job in and of itself. Like, you don't, as an interviewer, like your job is to not know everything, and if you do know all about one subject, you don't know what questions to be asked. You don't know how to ask questions. You're not a professional question asker or a professional curious mind. So
right.
I feel like you put two computer geeks in a room, and sometimes you put two artistic people in a room, and they're like, it's not as interesting, or either people don't understand it, or like sometimes especially with art and like actors, I feel like sometimes it feels fake. Like I'd much prefer watching Rogan interview some actor, like a famous actor. I'm trying to think of who my favorite one is that he's probably done it with. I don't know. He's done a bunch, but you get a different vibe from him doing that than sometimes you do actors that are talking to each other, because they have some sort of.
No, yeah. I mean, it's like when, you know, I do it myself sometimes. Like if you and I were like at a party and there were like two other people around, and then we just start talking about like Martin Scorsese or just like Quentin Tarantino or something, and just go down that rabbit hole of a conversation, and like the other people don't even like, they're like, yeah, I mean, I've seen Django, you know, then you know, it's just a little different, you know. So like I get that, yeah, and so yeah, that's why. And I mean, that goes back to the episode with Soule. You were talking about just like kind of, you know, just doing all different sorts of things just to make different content and like kind of understand, you know, bring collaboration together in a way. It's like these different worlds, these different industries. It's just like all can be part of a bigger thing, you know? I don't know.
Exactly, because there's an overlap in all of it, obviously. Like the reason, I mean, say what you will, especially in America, but I mean, say what you will about it for all of its problems. One thing we get right, I think, is the way we creatively approach our culture in a way, especially like with creative things. But I think one thing we're kind of starting to fall behind in is like an ability to communicate with each other when people, especially with social media and stuff, are starting to isolate and put themselves in bubbles where
they're just getting reaffirmed.
They don't want to talk to computer geeks, you know, and I have plenty of art people that won't do things like that. I should probably stop calling them computer geeks. let me just clarify that I take
technicians.
Geek and weird and strange. Those are all positive. Those are endearing terms.
Yeah, in terms of endearing, exactly.
But I think, I mean, it's funny because I come from the other perspective, and I definitely felt the same way going into art school. And then I came out of it and was kind of like, I'm kind of sick of being around artistic people, and that's why like senior year I did kind of isolate myself. Not like, sometimes it was personal, sometimes it wasn't, for good or bad reasons, whatever. But
right.
At the end of the day, I mean, there does, like, I think one of the mortal flaws of artists sometimes is that they think they've got everything figured out, and they think they have like a more cultured and tasteful eye for how they see the world and see things and what's important and what's not important, and they can't empathize with people that are computer geeks or want to care about stuff. But the reality is like, I think a lot of that's just young people and ignorance and sense of ego, overcoming their ego still,
right?
Which we're all obviously dealing with. But that's one thing that I've tried to get over and kind of see through is like, you should have an interest to talk to computer geeks, because those are the people that are doing the CGI for the fucking fantasy movie you want to make. You know, like you gotta gotta care about what they care about, even if you don't understand it.
Yeah, well, and that's what, so having that computer engineer guy on, like, through a lot of the episode, it was kind of hard for me to follow and kind of hard for me to be interested in a way. But I was still, like, he was very good. That's why I liked him. I love the guy because he's hilarious. And he was very good about, like, keeping it kind of lighter and less dry. And also, like, at the end, something that really kind of, like, hit it home for me was just, like, you know, I was like, yeah, so, you know, just kind of why? Like, what got you interested? Like, what do you still like about it and what keeps you motivated to keep doing it? And, you know, the question wasn't as eloquently put as that, but it was like, you know, he said something about how, like, there's just like a beauty to it. There's like a grace of making, of like turning actual like hardware into like software, things that just kind of like turning, you know, like the physical into some sort of like electronic reality.
Wow.
Was just like amazing to him. And I was like, damn, yeah, like that's an art in itself. You know what I mean? Like,
right. That's exactly what I was gonna say. That's such an artistic thought. Like that's poetry right there.
Right.
I really think that way with everything. And like going back to what we were saying earlier, I think for people like you and me, that's probably why we also get in funks pretty frequently about obsessing over all the options, because you can't want to be. It's hard to have that curious of a mind and not start to like criticize yourself for not being an expert, or start to expect yourself, or think that expect that you're like the person that wants to know everything, or at least is open to trying to know as much as they can and learn about everything, which isn't. I think accepting that can't be the case either is probably good when you're in that position, because then you start to it starts to lose its charm and its shine when you try to be that person instead of letting other people fill that role,
right,
in the spaces that they do. So
it's like
I love that I can appreciate that somebody can think that artistically about computer stuff and me not have the same exact feeling with that, but totally understand the feeling. Like if somebody loves something that is passionate about it, I can bond over it all day with them.
Oh yeah, dude, and yeah, and I mean, like you noted, like that's what I love. That's what the whole point of like articulate for me is, you know, is like for people to articulate that passion, that thing that keeps them going. Like, and I had an older lady that I worked with on a couple weeks ago, and yeah. And for her, it was, it was like family and like faith and endurance. And like, I'm not a religious person, but, you know, I wanted to hear what she had to talk about it on that, like in that way, because she was so passionate. Like it got her through so many things. You know what I mean? So it's just like kind of hearing that passion and hearing where the beauty comes from in the world. That's and that's the answer for the funks to me is just getting into that energy. Yeah.
Hell yeah, dude. That's the truth.
Well, I appreciate you jumping on this first time, like punked type of thing. I've been thinking of just different. There's like honestly, like I'm trying to adapt, right? Because like what I've been doing has been working, but I'm also around less people, like I was saying, just in general, and you work more and whatnot, and I want to experiment with different forms of the audio arts, you know. So like the story thing, you know, for episode 50, but also I did like characters back in the day. I kind of want to try that again, but like, you know, just trying different, you know, I just did the Donnie Darko script reading. Like I just
really?
It was.
You just read the entire script?
Yeah, it was a lot.
Oh, that's great, dude. I'm gonna watch the director's cut and then listen to that.
Yeah. You should.
I've never seen the director's cut.
Really? Dude, definitely. It starts out with a different song than the theatrical cut. And you know this, when the song is different, like, it's just a whole different vibe, you know?
Right.
Yeah. You definitely should watch the director's cut. You don't have to listen to the whole thing. I know it's like a 2.5 hour podcast, but...
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, it's like...
2.5 hour podcasts are my bread and butter, as are movies and reading scripts when I can, so that'll make it really easy to, when I get tired of music and other podcasts that are conversations, I can throw that on while I'm door dashing.
Yeah, that's fair. And it is interesting to see what parts are different and what parts were kind of more natural to the actors. and stuff like that. So
Oh, you had like actors do it too. It wasn't just you.
no, it was just me, but like reading the script is like the lines are different. I was talking about like the
Oh,
actors in
okay.
the movie, like what they kind of took and ran with versus like what the actual script reads.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Hmm.
Hell yeah, dude. Yeah, that'll be really cool for me to watch it then, and then like do it back to back. I'll have to watch it one night and then listen to that the next day. Honestly, I can see myself liking that a lot more. I don't ever listen to audiobooks just because like I don't even read tablets unless it's like an article, just because I feel like there's something so like, rooted in me as like from that transition as the kids that went from handheld books to like tablets and whatnot. Like
Right.
that's one as far as reading goes. Like that's my preference. I really like to have the book with me, but I feel like with screenwriting, because sometimes that can be a barrier with me with reading it. That I don't do it as often because it just feels like, why wouldn't I just like watch a movie? But there are so many benefits to like reading a screenplay and
Oh yeah, definitely. Like
taking the time to think about it. So it'd be really cool to listen. I'm sure listening to it would honestly be a better alternative for me, making me do it more often. Like I wonder if are there others, or is that a common thing? Are there any other podcasts or like
that read scripts like that. I actually don't know. You know, like I said, I'm experimenting here. I'm trying things out, so I haven't really like looked into it.
That's great. Keep it fresh and funky. Honestly, you're gonna fuck around and get picked up for like a multi-million-dollar alternate podcast where or just like a segment of Articulate 2 where you have like a second show within it where it's just you getting paid to voice act all of these different screenplays.
That's the dream, bro. That's what I'm headed for.
There's a demand for it, dude. I guarantee it. I bet most filmmakers. I'm like a lazy filmmaker that doesn't even read screenplays, and that sounds extremely enticing to me. So think about all the people that do read screenplays.
Yeah.
They fucking love it.
Yeah, it's true.
You're breaking out the big brain, dude. You're making me think. You're thinking like Zuckerberg. I just watched Social Network again the other night. I hadn't seen it in a few years.
Yeah, I remember it being pretty good. Is it?
Yeah, dude, it's one of my favorite movies. One of my favorite performances. It's so like simple in how it's made, but it's like the classic Fincher style, which say what you will about his movies or stories. Some people think they pale in comparison to just his shark style, but I think that movie is like borderline flawless, just because of how it's all it is just the dialogue and the characters. It breaks everything down. There's no gags or gimmicks or anything like that. It's just pure storytelling, and it's so compelling. It's so heartbreaking too, just like money and ideas and insecurities and friendships, like getting torn apart. Yeah, definitely. It meant a lot more to me watching it now that I'm in college too, and after college, because it's in that setting. And when I was a kid, I used to just fantasize and be like, "Wow, this looks all." It kind of felt like more like Wolf of Wall Street. Like it wasn't grandiose, but it's just very college stereotypical with a billionaire mind thrown into the mix.
Yeah, no.
It's really good, but I don't know. Or that's what I was gonna say. Is ever since watching it that night, I feel like I'm trying to think of what is in demand for the world. Obviously, I don't think.
Well, and
I think filmmaking and art is my main thing, but I'm trying to think of like Zuckerberg.
Right.
That was an artistic thing in a way, like social, and kind of like Sule was saying in that episode too. Like Facebook is, I mean, it's like Facebook and Instagram at this point. Twitter is very influential, though I think that's kind of like a young people thing.
Mm-hmm.
Instagram kind of is. It's kind of somewhere in between, and then Facebook is like old people thing, sort of, I guess. But like that was the OG. Like, and Facebook owns all these companies. Well, Instagram, not Twitter, I guess. But I guess what I'm getting to is like that's his canvas. He created something that was his art. You can see it in the performance too in Eisenberg, where he's like. He launches the website, and you feel like he just made his magnum opus, like he just fucking made his butterfly or something, you know?
Yeah, like I said, it's that energy, you know, that feeling that just like pulsates throughout your body. Yeah. But it's just like
we just need the good parts of Facebook, though. We need to bring people together, but it's hard to put things out that are in demand,
right?
And then people not abuse them.
Yeah,
you'll make the screenwriting audiobooks, and then people will.
Abuse them, yeah. They'll start being like they're copyrighted or something, and people get like pissed off about it. I don't know. Yeah,
right.
there's no downsides.
Because you said the N-word when you read Django.
Shit.
Too much power.
Yeah, too much power.
Goddamn internet, dude. It's our overlord.
Yeah, yeah. All right, man. Well, yeah, I think probably a good idea to wrap her up here.
Yeah, we'll just keep going if we don't.
Yeah, I mean, also, also, aren't you door dashing right now? Is that happening?
I pulled over just to keep talking to you to focus. So I didn't.
That worked out really well. Really good to try something out. And, I actually haven't sat down to do just like an improv conversation type thing in a while, maybe? I don't know. If I went through the past episodes, I mean, we've always had like a topic or something going into it. So just to sit down with somebody and be like, well, let's just have a conversation. Really felt good, and especially with Joey, just because, again, we always have a good conversation, and like, honestly, our conversation went on way longer after that, but there's just so much that's relevant, and I don't know, there's some personal stuff too that we had to talk about, so none of your business. So appreciate you listening, going through this experiment with me. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, and I hope you have a good week. Okay, thanks for listening. I love you, amen. Okay, bye.